Welcome to Bites of Light, guys. We are continuing our video lecture on polity for UPSC Civil Service Examination. Our today's topic is Features of Indian Federalism. The topics covered include 5 tests to understand the nature of the government, nature of Indian Constitution, going deeper into the nature of Indian Constitution, and distinctive features of Indian Federalism. So, our first topic is the 5 tests to understand whether a government is federal or unitary. We had learned about federal and unitary government in the previous lecture. So let's start the test. First test, it's about the distribution of power. That is, there is a clear-cut distribution of powers between the center and the states, and it involves a dual government. One at the center and one at the state. That is, there is a clear-cut distribution of power and there are dual governments. That is, one at the center and one at the states. That is, Pinarayi Vijayan government in Kerala and Narendra Modi government at the center. Let's go to the second test. The second test is whether we have a written constitution or not. That is, a written constitution only clearly separates the power between the center and the states, and thus a country with a written constitution can be a federal government. That is, this written constitution, and there is a clear separation of powers between the center and the state. Then we shall have a federal government. Coming to the third test, the presence of the supremacy of the constitution. That is, the constitution is the supreme, and the constitution should be binding both center as well as the state. If not, anytime the center can snatch powers from the state. That is, the supremacy of constitution is very important, else the center shall snatch the powers from the state. Coming to the fourth test, that is rigidity of the constitution. That is, the change in constitution must be a joint venture of both center as well as the state. That is, if you need to change the constitution, both the center as well as the state has to agree upon it, and then only the constitution can be changed. That is the rigidity of the constitution. Coming to the fifth and the last test, independence of judiciary. That is, judiciary is the protector or guardian of the constitution. The judiciary guards the constitution, and if the state or central government violates the constitution, then the law will be declared unconstitutional. That is, it is very independent. Our judiciary is independent, and if the center or the state violates the constitution, then that particular law shall be declared unconstitutional, or the law is no law at all. So these were the 5 tests. Now let's look at Indian Constitution and apply these 5 tests to our Indian Constitution. First test in case of Indian Constitution, that is distribution of power. Under Article 246, there are 3 lists, that is Union list, State list, and concurrent list. Under Union list comes banking, defense and communication. Under the State list comes law and order, agriculture and local government, and under the concurrent list comes marriage, civil and criminal procedure, and education. So these are the 3 lists. Now let's go deeper into these 3 lists. Here you can see that only the parliament has the right to make laws on things mentioned under union list. That is, union list is completely under the parliament. And when it comes to the concurrent list, both the parliament and the state has the power to legislate on subjects present in this particular list. And when it comes to the state list, state has the right to make laws under the state list. That is only under normal circumstances. So what are the abnormal circumstances? The abnormal circumstances include the period of emergency, and that would be due to many reasons, and one of the reasons would be breakdown of constitutional machinery in the particular state. And we also have a dual government, one at the center and one at the state. So this was our first test, that is about the distribution of power. Coming to the second test and applying it to the Indian Constitution. Test number 2, that is, do we have a written constitution? Yes, we do have a written constitution. So that's done. So we have passed that test. Coming to the test 3, supremacy of the constitution. Yes, here the constitution is supreme. That is, as this quote says, governments govern people and the constitution govern governments. So that test also we have passed. Coming to the fourth test, rigidity of the constitution. To change certain provisions in the constitution, there requires consent of more than half of the states. This is more than half of the states, 15 out of 29. And some of the provisions are like procedure for presidential elections and the cases in Schedule 7. So we have also passed that particular test. Coming to the fifth test, that is independence of judiciary. This is the Supreme Court of India, and yes, our Supreme Court is completely independent and no strings attached, and it is also the guardian of our constitution. So we passed that test also. So we have passed all the 5 tests. So we can agree that our constitution is that of a federal in nature. Let's not hurry. Let's get a little bit deep into it. That is going deep into the Indian constitution. Let's see about dual government and distribution of power. At any moment of time, the president's rule, that is emergency provisions, can dissolve the state government under the Article 356. Center can at any point in time dismiss the state governments, like that in the case of breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state. That is, emergency provisions can be applied and the state government can be dissolved. State can make law under the state list only under the normal circumstances, not during the emergency time. National emergency can be imposed and central parliament can legislate on state list as well. That is, that power also goes to the central parliament. And coming to the dual government, that is, the dual government and the distribution of power is only at the mercy of the central government. This is because the states in India were not consulted as the states in United States were consulted during the constitutional formation. And so there is a difference of power between the center and the states when it comes to India. Now let's look into the second test, rigidity of the constitution. That is, only 7 to 8 items are there in which the ratification of state are needed. All the rest of the items the parliament can do it. That is, parliament is having a upper hand when compared to the states. And fundamental rights, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policy, these can only be changed by the parliament. That is, bulk of the constitution can only be changed by the parliament. And also, no state can initiate to amend the constitution, and it is only vested in the hands of the parliament. Coming to the third one, so let's come to judiciary. That is, the appointments of the judges of Supreme Court and High Court are made by the President, and the transfer of these judges also from one High Court to another is also done by the President. Now let us see the expert's take on Indian Constitution. Professor K.C. Ver has said that India is a unitary constitution with some federal features. Mr. Ivor Jennings has said that India is a federation with centralizing tendency. Professor Alexandrovich has said that India is a case of sui generis, that is, it is unique. That is, neither case of federal or nor case of unitary. And despite federalism, the national interest is the supreme, and Constitution is amphibian in nature, that is neither federal nor unitary, sometimes federal and sometimes unitary. It can also be said to be quasi-federal. So this was about the expert's take. Now let's go to the distinctive features of Indian federalism. We have a single constitution, that is, the center and the state have the same constitution. But in the case of US, it is different. The center and the state have different constitution. we have an exception, that is only J and K. This is US Constitution and this is Indian Constitution. The second feature is we have single citizenship. That is, an individual can only be the citizen of India and not the citizen of a particular state in India. That is, you cannot be a citizen of your own state and that of India, but the citizen of India only. It is different from the case of US, where you have dual citizenship, that is one of the state and that of the US. That is, you can be a citizen of California, that is a state in US, and also the US as well. Just like Srinarayana Guru is from Kerala and Mahatma Gandhi is from Gujarat. They both have only the citizenship of India and not of Kerala and that of Gujarat. But when it comes to Barack Obama and Donald Trump, if they are from different states, they have the citizenship of those states as well as that of US. Coming to the third one, we have a single Supreme Court. This is the Supreme Court of India. But when it comes to US, there is one Federal Supreme Court and Supreme Court for each state. This is the Federal Supreme Court of US. So that is another distinctive feature. Coming to the fourth one, we have a uniformly hierarchical judicial system. That is, a particular district court judge can be elevated to the position of high court judge and the high court judge can be elevated to the position of Supreme Court judge. That is, the district court judge can go and represent the Supreme Court of India. That is a distinctive nature. That is, the same person can be elevated and the person can go and represent from the district court to High Court to Supreme Court. Coming to the last feature, the presence of all India services, that is Indian Administrative Service, Indian Police Service and Indian Forest Service. And all these appointments are made by the President. That is, the central authority will be recruiting people to the states. That is another feature. So in this particular lecture, we have learned a lot of things under the features of Indian federalism. That is the 5 tests. First test is distribution of power. Second is written constitution. Third is supremacy of the constitution. Fourth is rigidity of the constitution. Fifth, independence of the judiciary. Then applying these tests to Indian constitution. That is distribution of power, the presence of 3 lists, what happens during abnormal circumstances, the presence of dual government, the written constitution, supremacy of the constitution, rigidity of the constitution, and the provisions that require consent of more than half of the states, independence of judiciary. And then we went deeper into our constitution and then we understood that the dual government or the distribution of power can be disrupted under the Article 356. The rigidity of the constitution, where only 7 to 8 items need the ratification of the states and majority lies with the central government. Judiciary, where the judges of High Court and Supreme Court are appointed by the President. And we saw experts' take on Indian Constitution and about the importance of national interest. Then we went to the distinctive features of Indian federalism, which are single constitution, single citizenship, single Supreme Court, uniform hierarchical judicial system, and the last one is the presence of all India services. So this was all about our video on this particular topic. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe our channel for more updates and don't forget to press the bell icon for notifications.